bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate the world, peaches right.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. I just thought I'd add like a bit of a more scientific perspective, I guess, as opposed to just like I guess social class. In that, um, I would just be I'm wondering if you had like a bunch of petri dishes of zygotes and a lab tech like accidentally knocked one over, then would someone like justify that to be murder? I don't like I don't really understand why people consider like a fertilized egg and sperm to be like sentient, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a common argument that essentially once an egg becomes fertilized, it is the start of human development and it starts growing, therefore that's when life begins. But no, I agree with you. Life has the term life has a lot of nuance. Just like an apple attached to a tree is alive, is it immoral to pick it? It's not as simple as saying something is alive.
Yeah, and I'm seeing someone say people dispose IVF embryos all the time because you're supposed to like select the one that's most likely to um, to live successfully, right? But by pro-life argument, um,
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
mean, they
I
take
just
partial growth in the lab to see how the embryo handles it and essentially take the ones that perform the best because they're
yeah,
changed
right. And then
outcome.
people argue like, sorry if I'm not disagreeing with you. I just thought this was like a good like I just kind of wanted to get this point out there, but people say, well, it is human life. It is technically life. And it's like, yeah, but like also like yeast cell cultures are life. And we like drink that at the bar, like those also can develop in petri dishes. And I think someone said to me, well, zygotes can detect, or like in development, fetus has been shown to respond to light stimuli and respond to sound stimuli. And it's like, I mean, phytoplankton also respond to light stimuli, but we're not really protecting that. And then just
Yeah.
to put it
A
in a,
sunflower is actually called a sunflower because it follows the sun.
yeah. Anyways, I don't really understand how people liken an actual, like just something that's like barely multicellular as to like complete conscious human life. Because I think I would define human life as something that starts to create memories or interpret images. Uh, Hard to speak on IVF if you're not informed on the science behind it, someone said. I mean, well, at the very basis of IVF, you're taking
I
like,
think the point that she's trying to make is why is everyone up in arms and dying on this hill of abortion, but there's no one up in arms dying on this hill of we need to stop IVF.
that exactly. That's more what I'm getting about. I can't speak to the details of like what happens in a lab. I just know it's like if a lab tech accidentally knocked over a zygote, it wouldn't really be a big deal because it's replicatable. You would just pipette some more ejaculate and then follow the necessary procedure to recreate that trial. So, but by pro-lifer logic, whoever knocked over that petri dish is a murderer at that point, right? So I don't know. I just don't really understand the perspective. And then also putting in a wider perspective, more of like a social perspective, I'm thinking like, aren't there more pressing issues? Like, shouldn't we be allocating a lot of these resources into like the foster care system and children who are like born and alive? Right? I don't know. That's
Yeah, I mean, if I'm glad you brought that up because I always say if we're really gonna have a middle ground or a common goal of either reducing abortion or preventing unwanted pregnancy, I'm all about comprehensive solutions. I just don't think abortion bans should be on this list because number one, they don't work, and number two, it's just a tactic to oppress and subjugate pregnant persons and women.
yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
let's just, like I said, we can work together, or you can just kind of be morally self-righteous and see and see such a myopic view of the scope like that.
Yeah,
That's what I find through this that I take away.
Like in no other case scenario do we defend so fervently, like I said, something that is just barely multicellular and at that point is just a combination of genetics, right? And it's like, to me, it's less value than a human life that has actually come to term and has been born because it's so easily replicatable. You know, there's like, you know, there's probably like kilos of sperm that's been donated. And I will say, like, harvesting eggs from women is a pretty like intense process. And it is pretty invasive, but you know, like it is still a replicatable process and it can be done over and over. So I just don't see that inherent value of something that has not experienced, you know, sunlight, has not seen images yet, can't even feel pain. Like I honestly likened it to like, because euthanasia is legal for people that are in a vegetative state, and those are people that have formed memories and have actually like actual minds, right?
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up too, you know, because I like to make the comparison of, you know, does a brain dead person hooked to a machine have value?
Yeah.
Because essentially a lot of the argument that I hear from pro-life is that the only two requirements is it needs to have its own unique DNA and it needs to be alive. So under that umbrella, a brain dead person would still classify as what they value in human life because they still have their own unique strand of DNA and they are still technically cellularly alive. But really the value of what makes us individuals is completely gone.
Exactly.
And then it kind of digresses into the potentiality argument. Well, but that person doesn't ever have potential to come back where a fetus does. And so that's where we really have to look at it with biology, because biology, we don't treat something based on what it could do. We treat it based on what it is at that moment.
Exactly.
And so
exactly.
it is at that moment equivalent to someone who is essentially brain dead just in the terms of development, then I don't see how it is immoral for a woman to deny her bodily processes to sustain its life.
Yeah, exactly. We never in healthcare like extrapolate into the future, because also there's a possibility that fetus could miscarry, right? Like,
right.
Because exactly. people just ignore the fact that time is linear, and when you're considering like a life form, you have to consider it at this point in time, right? That's what makes sense to me, because if you keep extrapolating in the future, there's too many possibilities to count. So there's no
right. You always focus on the potential of what it could be. I mean, you know, we all have the potential and the certainty to die. You know, do we treat living adults as they're already dead? No. Even for, you know, children, you're eventually going to be an adult. You have that potential, but are there different ways that we treat children? Absolutely. So there's so many different lanes you can go down into, you know, morality, value, bodily autonomy. So it is a pretty complex subject.
Yeah, I think I see a comment that time isn't linear, which is true, but I think for most people's like perception and in every capacity of like living a daily human life, it is. But yeah, and also something that I thought of, I think this is a good point to make as well, is I saw an article where someone was aware that their child would die within like the first few hours of being born, but they decided to bring it to term anyways, so like the organs could be donated to other like babies in need of those organs. And that brings an interesting argument where if you're already aware this child is going to die, wouldn't by like pro-lifer argument that's even a worse intentional murder to bring it to life, right? Like if you're aware this baby will die after being born, it will experience a like pain in its death having been outside of the womb, and you choose to keep it and, you know, not terminate that pregnancy while it's still painless and floating and its eyes are closed, right? Isn't that worse? But technically you haven't aborted it. I don't see how someone would logic that argument, right?
It's not one I've heard before, but I am going to bring on another guest because I'm not going to
Sure.
be on here too long. So
My bad,
thank
but
you.
thanks so much for
No,
chatting.
not your bad at all. Sorry, I feel terrible when I have to kick people off. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and you're always welcome. Appreciate it, doll.
I'm so fucking cute, bitch. I'm so fucking cute.